Spring practice is done, but the second window of the transfer portal has officially opened. What are we expecting from Tennessee in the transfer portal this go around? Departures, arrivals, that and a whole lot more here on a Tuesday. Locked on Vols.
You are Locked on Vols, your daily podcast on the Tennessee Volunteers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into it. This is your Tuesday edition of Locked on Vols. I'm your host, Eric Kane. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me here today. Shout out everydayers. I see you, and I see you guys have been sending me in some questions to get into in the mailbag. That's coming up in segment number 3. Segment 1, transfer portal window. What should we expect from Tennessee this go around? Segment 2, some more praise for Tennessee Vols, the NFL Draft. What are they saying about Hendon Hooker and about Darnell Wright? That's coming up on your show here on a Tuesday. As always, thanks so much for making Locked on Vols your first listen each and every day. And we're a part of the Locked on Podcast Network. That is your team every single day. Again, shout out you everydayers watching on YouTube. I see you, and subscribing to the channel there and listening wherever you find your podcast. 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and all that good stuff. Really, really do appreciate you guys. Was talking to my guy G down in Chattanooga, went on his radio show, and man, he was saying how blessed he was, and hearing me say that on the podcast, that we get to talk Tennessee football, sports, all day, every day. And I just couldn't agree more, man. I know I say it, I know it sounds repetitive sometimes, but to be able to sit back here and talk about sports and get paid for it, it's the best job in the world. So I enjoyed that conversation with Greg earlier on Monday, and I appreciate him, an avid Locked on Vols listener. Check out his radio show as well as ESPN Chattanooga. Does really, really good stuff there. Okay, so transfer portal window this time for the Vols. Now, let's understand the portal a little bit, okay? This window, it runs from April 15th to April the 30th. Players don't have to pick a school that they're going to during those specific dates, but those who are planning to enter the portal need to jump in during those dates. Those days don't apply to graduate transfers who can enter the portal whenever they wish. If there's a head coaching change, which, by now there shouldn't be anymore, but if there is, players can enter the portal outside of those dates as well. A year ago, according to the NCAA, 950 football players went into the portal in 2020. There were less than 600 players who transferred. Coaches and media around the country feel like this year, it's going to be a record number of players who go into the portal, especially those one-time transfers. Tennessee has benefited from the transfer portal. It's giveth and it's taketh away, right? Remember, after the 2020 season, it took away in a huge, huge spot. But for this 2023 season, Tennessee's already been really active in the transfer portal during that first window in December that lasted 45 days. BYU transfers Keenan Peely at linebacker, Gabe Judy Lawley at cornerback, Omar Norman Lott at Arizona State, John Campbell from Miami, who's likely to be a starting left tackle for you, Andre Carrick from Texas, Dante Thornton from Oregon, who everybody says is going to do some big things. Tight end from UC Davis, that's McCallan Castles. Also found a place kicker from Indiana and Charles Campbell. So Tennessee's had a pretty good haul in terms of guys who's going to help them out and play some big-time roles for Tennessee in 2023. The reality is that the portal has accelerated a rebuild for Josh Heupel when you really think about it. Hendon Hooker was brought in via the transfer portal from Jeremy Pruitt, but he was still here. Joe Milton was brought in, via the transfer portal, and he's going to be your starting quarterback, and of course was Orange Bowl MVP and was the starter back in 2021 before being sidelined in Hooker. Tennessee also found Gerald Mincey, who played nearly 500 snaps at left tackle last year. Brew McCoy came over from USC and made a huge impact, and he's going to be the leading receiver this year for Tennessee, likely. Tennessee's also brought in Kamal Haddon, Brandon Turnage, Wesley Walker, Juwan Mitchell, DJ Terry. They've all started games for Tennessee in its first 10-win regular season since 2003. All those guys have come via the transfer portal. So just some disclaimers out there to kind of understand how Tennessee has benefited from the portal, how this window works. It opened Saturday. It'll be open until April the 30th. So it's a 15-day window. And again, players don't have to choose a school, but if they're going to be in the portal, they need to enter between those dates. So for Tennessee, what's this look like? I already ran down kind of who Tennessee's already gotten via the transfer portal. But what positions could Tennessee maybe be looking for? I don't expect this, at least from either way, but I'll get to the departures here in a moment. I don't expect Tennessee to take many, if any. Okay? I know that rhymed. I didn't really mean for it to rhyme. But it's got to make complete sense, right? You really need to be a multi-year player, okay? Tennessee's roster is at a point now to where they're not just in gimme, gimme, gimme mode. They can really sit back and be selective. Now, they've taken some players. They had to get a tight end this offseason in the transfer portal, and you did in McCallum Castles. But tight end is one of those positions to where if one is out there and one has multiple years of experience and the staff evaluates the film and talks to some coaches, does their due diligence, speaks to the player, and if they say it's a good fit, then I could see a tight end, if it makes sense, coming in via the transfer portal. Because after this season, Jacob Warren's gone, McCallum Castle's gone, you're bringing back Ethan Davis, and that is your only scholarship tight end. Tennessee has got to replenish the numbers at tight end. That's why I think for the class of 2023, you're going to see at least 2 tight ends, 3 if they can swing it. But if there is a multi-year tight end out there that makes sense, I could see that being a position that comes in. Tennessee has already offered an offensive lineman. Let me go see if I can find that real quick. I meant to write down his name. I apologize. But Tennessee's also already offered an offensive lineman through the portal. And I can't find it. I knew I couldn't. I'm sorry. I think he played for, I don't want to say Presbyterian, but I really think that's what it was. There we go. I'll find it. I will find it, and I guess I can. I'm sorry. But Tennessee already offered an offensive lineman from the portal already here on a Monday, so you can never have enough at the line of scrimmage, and that's something Tennessee's going to be looking for to help. Maybe a defensive lineman as well. Gosh, during the break, I'm going to go hunt that down and find that name. So sorry, but Tennessee could always bring in an offensive lineman potentially because they're still looking for a starting guard and a starting right tackle. But again, you have guys at that position. Defensive line, you can never have too many, in my opinion, because it's a rotational position. And then, maybe, I don't know, maybe just best available at that point, right? But it's got to make sense. So I don't expect many additions, again, if any, for Tennessee in this wave of the transfer portal. What about departures? Okay, what about departures? I'm not going to sit here and say Tennessee's not going to have anybody go. I don't know full-fledged 100% of one person that's going to jump in the portal right now, but I've got a few ideas. I don't expect it to be many. I think somebody said it at 4.5 over under maybe last week on VolQuest, and I would take the under there. But you can't tell me that no defensive back's going to enter the transfer portal. There are so many guys' names there. Not all of them can play. And so for so long, I thought it was going to be Kamal Hadden, but Kamal Hadden seemingly had a really good spring. He's been repping with the ones, and I don't think that's a scenario anymore. But, obviously none of the new guys are going to enter the transfer portal, but is there anybody else in that defensive backfield that's just going to sit here and say, yeah, well, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to get some playing time. But if you look at the depth chart and look at everybody in front of you, it's like, maybe I'll see some better, greener pastures elsewhere. I'd be looking for a defensive back potentially if I am Tennessee. What about the same thing for that defensive line? It's a rotational position. You play an awful lot, but there are some guys that have been in that rotation that have seen their numbers kind of shrink and shrink and shrink as the season went along. Depending on how they view themselves in spring practice, I could maybe see a defensive lineman entering the transfer portal. And then wide receiver. Tennessee, to my count, and maybe I'm wrong, but right now has 7 scholarship wide receivers, okay? 2 of those, Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod, got a whole lot of run this spring because of all the injuries. But we know that Tennessee shrinks that wide receiver rotation, and it's really, really tough to break through. I'm not saying I've heard anything, but Chaz Nimrod, Caleb Webb, those would be big-time transfer portal candidates, in my opinion, in this day and age of the transfer portal. So, maybe there's a wide receiver that jumps in. We will see. It's 15 days long, but that's kind of how I view the transfer portal window for Tennessee right now. Tennessee did a great job of addressing needs during the first edition or the first round of the transfer portal. And, really, right now you can be super selective. And, again, you might not have to take anybody. So we'll continue to track it. I know a lot of you guys, Jacob, Robo22, Michael Palmer, a lot of you guys were asking about the transfer portal as part of your Twitter Tuesday mailbag questions. I just lumped them in and decided to make this a whole segment. And so that's kind of my views on it right now. Also, the cue of the day yesterday on the show for you everydayers was, who were you most impressed with during the orange and white game? Some Nico, some Joe, some of those young linebackers, Cam Seldon, Deshaun Bishop. Also got a lot of love for Gaston Moore. And shout out Gaston Moore. He played really, really well. You feel good about Tennessee's third-string quarterback if it ever had to come to that. You hope it never does. Man, you hope it never does. But you'd rather see a third-string quarterback balling out in a spring game. And that's what Gaston Moore did on Saturday. So good for him. All right, when we come back, we will take a look at NFL Vols heading to the draft. What are they saying about Hendon Hooker and Darnell Wright? More on that here in just a moment on Locked On Vols. Grand Slam, no-hitters, and double plays, they are back, and there's no better place to get in on all that MLB action than at FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook. That's right, because right now, new customers can step up to the plate with a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up, and place your bet. You can get up to $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. What about Brave slugger Austin Riley? Can he pick up where he left off on a near MVP type season a year ago? What about wherever that home run total is set, hit the over or the under for maybe a week of games, maybe the entire season, whatever the case may be. What about over under 20 stolen bags for Ronald Acuna Jr.? I would take the over in that one. What about pitchers and strikeouts and a start? Of course, money line, run lines, spreads, all that type of stuff, futures, it's all at, when you're betting on the sport of baseball, over at FanDuel. Don't miss your chance at a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel.com today. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, it's official partner of Major League Baseball. What up, everybody? Welcome back into your Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. Appreciate you guys, you everydayers, for making this your first listen. Coming up tomorrow on your Wednesday edition of the show, we'll catch up with Josh Ward, get a little Ward Wednesday action. We'll have Throwback Thursday coming up on Thursday. A lot of you guys have already texted me, who have my number, DM me, whatever, and said, hey, I'd love to help out with that throwback segment on Thursday. By all means, I could use all the help I can get. You know, we are in hunting season right now. No, not just turkeys. I know that was a couple of days ago. Shout out Jeff Coe, my roots. But we're hunting for content season here with spring practice officially over. That's what you guys have to look forward to coming up the rest of the week. Okay, so I was sputtering all over myself that last segment trying to figure out who the offer was Tennessee sent out via the transfer portal. Told you I found the name, won't leave you hanging. Emmanuel Pregnon, I believe is how you say his name, but you guys know me with words, not very good. Emmanuel Pregnon, he is an offensive lineman from Wyoming. He is a offensive guard, college football news freshman, All-American. He has picked up offers from Miami, from Tennessee, from Penn State, from Charlotte, from Arizona State, from Auburn, from Kentucky. He's all over the place. Oregon, Ole Miss, UCLA, Arizona, Purdue, Illinois. Tons and tons of Power 5 offers already since entering his name in the transfer portal. Obviously, he is an offensive lineman target and one of the top ones for this window season. Let's see if I can find a position exactly what he plays. Let's see here. I think he's interior. Let's see here. 6'6", 320 pounds. Yeah, he's interior. He plays the guard centers of the world there. So anyway, I'll double check on that, but I'm pretty sure he is interior. But that is a guy that Tennessee has already offered here for the transfer portal window. Also, when I was looking up that name, I noticed while doing this podcast that Harrison Bailey has entered the transfer portal. Wish him the best of luck. I mean, I'm not trying to be rude. Again, the worst thing that ever happened to Harrison Bailey was, by golly, rivals slapped that 5th star on him late in the cycle, and it was just too much expectations to live up to. He was one of the best quarterbacks to ever play in Georgia high school football. That is a fact. Didn't work out at Tennessee, did not work out at UNLV. Harrison Bailey is back in the transfer portal. All right, so want to talk about some NFL Vols and kind of what they're saying. ESPN has put out a couple of things in the last few days. Jeff Legwold, who's an NFL Draft Analyst over at ESPN.com, he put out a column, 7 prospects who improved their stock the most over this NFL draft process. Number 1 on his list is Tennessee offensive tackle Darnell Wright. How far he climbed the boards. He says, quote, Wright is the body of work riser. Scouts had a third-round grade on him at best in August. They thought he had been inconsistent as the Vols left tackle in 2021. So in a lot of databases, he opened the season as a day 2 or even early day 3 pick. Now he sits solidified with a first-round grade and is expected to be among the first tackles off the board. The turning point was, quote, September the 1st, when Wright lined up at right tackle in the Vols season opener against Ball State. After the 2021 season at left, he went back to the right side. He continued to get experience, worked that position, and in return, he played right tackle and right guard in 2019, right tackle in 2020, resulted in Wright playing with better footwork and technique this past fall. Why he rose, quote, there will still be some bodies, there will still be some bubbles in pass protection at time. He lets rushers get into his body a little too often, but he was far more comfortable in his technique throughout the year. His body of work against Will Anderson Jr. in Tennessee's 52-49 win over Alabama in October, when the Crimson Tide had one sack, that was by DJ Dale, and the Vols' 32 dropbacks was really, really good. It goes on to say what they're saying. I built on things I lacked and stayed strong with the things I was good at, just progressing. That's actually what Darnell Wright said on the biggest difference between his junior and his senior years. So the biggest riser, according to ESPN's Jeff Legwold, is Darnell Wright, offensive tackle from Tennessee. Others mentioned in this, Luke Musgrave, tight end from Oregon State. I'm not even going to pronounce that name. That edge rusher from Louisville. Stetson Bennett, quarterback of Georgia. Chandler Zavala, guard from North Carolina State. Isaiah Land, outside backer from Florida A&M. Joey Fisher, offensive tackle from Shepherd. I wonder if he's related to Eric Fisher. That's a good question. Research for another day. But, of course, Darnell Wright, who is going to be selected in the first round, getting a lot of praise in terms of this riser column from Jeff Legwold over at ESPN.com. Any mock draft you look at, I mean, he's either the first tackle taken or the last tackle taken in the first round. I think he's going to be right up there, man. He'll be a top 20 pick for sure. I can't wait to see where he lands. A lot of people saying he's going to go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. That's kind of a trendy pick right now as well, so we will have to see. One other thing I want to mention here in terms of Vols in the NFL Draft, Mike Tannenbaum, ESPN Draft Analyst, formerly of, I believe he was the New York Jets general manager for a couple of years, former NFL GM. Of course, and we talked about it here on the show for you everydayers, he made headlines by saying, if he was drafted, he would take Hendon Hooker 5th to the Seahawks overall. Hendon Hooker 5th overall to the Seahawks. But he kind of backed some of that up a couple days ago in an interview he was doing. Had a really interesting player comparison for Hooker, and it's to Dallas Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott. Quote, Prescott has been a productive top 12 quarterback in the NFL despite not having one real dominant trait. And I think Hooker will have a very similar career. He has really good size at 6'3", 217 pounds. Gosh, that'd be a big boy if it was 275 pounds at quarterback. Arm strength and accuracy. He goes on to say, while other quarterbacks in this class will get more hype, Hooker could ultimately be a 10-year starter in the National Football League. Wow. Comparing him to Dak Prescott in terms of player comps and saying that he could ultimately be a 10-year NFL starter. That is some good things there from Hendon Hooker. If you go to ESPN.com and look at the draft section in terms of the best available at the quarterback position, they maintain he's still at number 5 in terms of the best available behind Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Anthony Richardson, and Will Levis, number 5 in terms of the quarterbacks, and ranked number 33 overall with an 87 grade. A couple weeks ago, whenever he wrote about taking Hendon Hooker with the 5th pick with the Seahawks in his mock draft, this is what he said. Okay, this one might raise some eyebrows. This is on the pick. But hear me out. I think Hooker is really under-scouted right now, largely because he's coming off an ACL tear in his left knee. But I love his strong arm, his 6'3" frame. Before the injury, Hooker looked great for the Vols. He led the nation in yards per attempt at 9.5 yards, threw 2 interceptions over 11 starts, was a top 10 passer in terms of completion percentage at 69.6%. Nice. I see a potential franchise quarterback and someone who can lead an offense. Go watch his performance against Alabama if you disagree. On the Seahawks, who would have made that pick a couple weeks ago, he says, the Seahawks recently re-signed Geno Smith, but this is an excellent opportunity to draft and develop Hooker while also letting him rehab the knee. Smith turns 33 years old this season, and his new contract offers Seattle various outs over the next 3 seasons. The Athletic put out a mock draft earlier this week as well, had Darnell Wright going to the Bucs at 19, Hendon Hooker to these same Seattle Seahawks at 37. Remember, Seattle has the 5th pick, I want to say like the 24th pick, and the 37th pick. So they have a whole lot of draft capital. They can go best available. They can trade down. They can go back up in the first round if they need to. Seattle can wheel and deal because they got so many picks. So the Athletic has Darnell Wright going to the Bucs at 19, Hendon Hooker going to the Seahawks at 37, Jalen Hyatt to the Saints at 40, Cedric Tillman to the Bills at 59, Byron Young to the 49ers at 99, and Jeremy Banks to the Buccaneers at pick 252 in the 7th round. Man, the NFL Draft, it is coming up. It is later next week. And gosh, I can't wait to see where these guys go to. It's going to be a whole lot of fun. Let's get to your mailbag questions. A lot of good ones here on this edition of the Mailbag Podcast. That is coming up in segment number 3 of a Tuesday show. All right, guys, we got a final segment left here of this Tuesday edition of Locked On Vols. I'm your host, Eric Kane. You can always find me on Twitter at _Kaner and at Locked On Vols, and that is where you guys have sent in your Twitter Tuesday questions here for today's show. Let's go ahead and start with it. Kurt chimes in, says, hey, the offense is very 3 wide receiver heavy, but based on tempo, don't sub out a lot. ESPN broadcast was talking about how we're 4 deep at starting wide receiver, but I feel like Squirrel or Thornton are just going to be the odd man out, not to mention Nimrod and Webb. Thoughts on this? Yeah, it's a good point. Like I said in segment number 1 when talking about the transfer portal, and again, I'm not saying that Nimrod or Webb will go to the portal. Maybe one of them will, maybe one of them won't. I don't expect Nimrod to, and really I haven't heard much about Caleb Webb. And I'm just saying that would be kind of the situation to where it's like, man, I am blocked like crazy here. I don't know if I can get on the field. So you go look for greener pastures, but also keep in mind too, how many places can you transfer in the sun? And this one I'm really intrigued about, right? With this window, how many will jump in, not just Tennessee, but in general in this window? Because spring practice is over. If you're a quarterback, good luck. Like, Alabama needs a quarterback, but are you going to find one right now? Doubtful, right? I mean, like, can you learn an offense? Can you get equipped to everything and then be ready to roll by week 1? That is tough sledding. So I'm intrigued to see nationally what this second window looks like. I really am. But as far as Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod, I did a radio show. I did a radio hit, a couple of them on Monday, and I said this about both those guys. Like, I feel like their only opportunity to the field this season would, at least what it feels like, would be via injury, right? Like Ramel Keaton, look what he did last year. He stepped up and played well, and he's not coming out now. But Brew McCoy's going to man one side. Ramel Keaton's not coming out of the game anytime soon. And Dante Thornton and Squirrel White will both play the slot. Also, if one of the outside guys gets injured, Thornton has the versatility to bump outside as well. Those are your 4 wide receivers who are going to play. And you're right. They go 3 wide receivers a whole lot of time because of the tempo and because they have to keep a tight end on the field. So one of those 4 is not going to be out there if they're all 4 healthy. But I think it'd come between Thornton and Squirrel. But they love Squirrel, obviously. He's already done a lot of things for them. But they love Thornton and his long, lengthy explosion out of the slot. They really, really do. But he can also play on the outside. So tough sledding for the odd man out there, especially Webb and Nimrod as it stands right now. But next season, I mean, there's opportunity. And they love Chaz Nimrod. I know they do. It's just kind of hard to get on the field right now. Let's go to Luke. What was your biggest takeaway from the starting defense from the spring football game? Good question. Really good question, because it was kind of hard to follow because it wasn't real football. Couldn't really touch the quarterback. I like the young linebackers. I did. Aaron Carter was flying around doing some things. I thought the secondary looked a bit more quicker, maybe more athletic. I just thought they looked better. We'll need to go back and watch some more, but since it wasn't a real football game and you didn't have true down and distance because they picked up the ball and moved it around a little bit, It's kind of hard to get a gauge a lot of times on the defense in a scrimmage like that. But I did like the young linebacker play. I really did. And I thought it was a great chance to see Elijah Herring and Caleb Perry play a whole lot of football because, again, Aaron Beasley and Keenan Peely were held out. All right, so this next one, I'm not going to mention the name, and I'll tell you why here in just a moment because it's a two-parter. First part says, I feel like we're growing as a fan base with a football team. In the past, I feel as if after seeing Nico throw, we would have went ballistic and clamored for him to be the starter over Joe after that spring game. I think he's talking about that one play where he rolled out and made that nice throw to Ethan Davis. After jumping on Twitter, everyone for the most part seemed to be very level-headed, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud about that for us as a fan base. Yeah, I think everybody pretty much knows that Joe's the guy. Quote-unquote quarterback battle, sure, but it's going to be Joe Milton unless something just crazy happens, and Nico's going to sit there, learn from him, be a resource, soak up all he can, continue to rep, and continue to get as good as he can for his time in 2024. Also, this is why I'm not mentioning his name. I'm popping the big question to my girlfriend this weekend. As a newlywed yourself, what advice can you give for popping the question? Thank you for all you do. Well, shout out to you, this person. I'm omitting your name because just by some chance, if her brother, if her cousin, if her herself would listen to this podcast or somebody listen and tell her, and they could trace this back, and I don't want to ruin your moment. So omitting your name here. Dude, it is one of the absolute best feelings and most stressful times of your life. I was freaking, I mean, I was nervous as all get out. I remember I had it all planned. Everybody knew what was going to happen. I had it down to like a T of like what's happening and everything. But like when I got to be like that whole day, I was great. I was golden. And then when it got to be about 10 minutes before, I got so nervous. I started to sweat. My palms are sweaty. You know that song? Hands clammy, palms sweaty. Man, I was acting kind of weird. So don't act too weird because you might know something's coming up. Also, baggy clothes of your friend. If you have that ring, you have it in the little case there, the little box. If it's in your pants pocket and your pants are a little bit tight, I mean, that's the bulge, right? Can't always just blame it on your keys. I was sitting, she was across the room, and I was so nervous about having that ring thing in my pocket, right? The box, that like I took it out of my jackets and I put it on the ground in between my legs, and I just kind of sat there so no one could see, so she couldn't just see what was like, hey, what's in your pocket there, But anyway, just have fun with it, man. And regardless, she's going to say yes, because if you're to the point of asking, someone to marry you, like you already know the answer. So no matter what happens, she's going to say yes. My fiance, now wife, didn't even look at the ring. Like as soon as I got down on my knees, she said yes. So no matter what happens, dude, enjoy it. It'll be an awesome memory. Make sure someone's there to take your picture, because she will want it. If her nails need a touch up or whatever, get her BFF, say, hey, get my fiance, whatever her name is. Hey, y'all go get your nails done, and make sure she's all taken care of in that regard. But best of luck, and I can't wait for you to tell me all about it. That's exciting stuff. I got a couple more here, and then we will call it quits on this edition of Locked On Vols. Let's go to Sawyer. Sawyer says, I get that the SEC is the best in baseball conference, but Tennessee looks completely lost at times. Starting pitching isn't what we thought it was and would be, and they can't get a big win when they need it. What would your preferred lineup be for the rest of this season? All right. I would have Dickey leading off, and it depends on matchup, but I would have Jared Dickey leading off and catching. I would have Dreiling hitting second and playing DHing. And again, if you're going up against a southpaw like Vanderbilt has 3 left-handed pitchers in the starting rotation, you would need to alter this because you wouldn't want to go lefty against a lefty. But again, I'm just spitballing here. Dickey catching, hitting leadoff. Dreiling, DHing, hitting second. Moore hitting third, second base. Burke clean up first base. Then I would want to go Tiers, right field. I would want to go That's 6. A healthy Ahuna. Shortstop. Okay. I want to go Denton. Third base. Then who am I missing here? I need a left fielder. Gosh, man. Inslee needs to get in there. Inslee is my center fielder. And then Scott. Actually, I'd have Inslee in left. And then I would have Scott in center field. And remember, Griffin Merritt's right-handed bat needs to be in there against a lefty a lot of the times. But let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yep. I would have Dickey catching. Right now, I'd have Drawling DHing, hitting second. Moore, third, playing second base. Blake Burke, clean up first base. Tiers, fifth, right field. Ahuna, sixth, shortstop. Denton, seventh, third base. Inslee, eighth, left field. Christian Scott, ninth, playing center field. Griffin Merritt can play. Cal Stark would likely play because he's a right-handed bat. Yeah, there's some options here. The biggest thing for Tennessee right now is, the starting pitching has not been what it was last year. That was elite, but it took a ginormous step back, and that's just not good. Defense has been horrendous all year long. That's the biggest issue here. Take Friday and Saturday, for example. Andrew Lindsey and Chase Dollander at Arkansas this year, or this past weekend, deserved a whole lot better. Their starts were ruined because of poor defense behind them. And it's just one thing. And running into bases running into outs on the base pass is another thing. So you knew it wasn't going to be as good as last year because it was a historic baseball season last year. It's unfortunate. More on baseball, go check out my work at VolQuest.com. My 3-2-1 release yesterday kind of paints all the pictures and the scenarios to where Tennessee needs to do to make the postseason from here on out. We're running out of time here, so if you guys want me to talk more baseball, let me know. I can do that. I cover the team, but I'm just a little short on time right now. Go check it out at VolQuest.com. Let's go to Vols by Fitty. This is actually last week. I apologize, I missed it. Where does the team stand with Sammy after this weekend's visit? It was Sammy Brown, I believe, so you're referring to. That was a visit last weekend or 2 weekends ago. They're behind, I would say. They're behind in that one. Still in the picture, but they're behind, and they've always been behind with Sammy Brown, but I don't think a real big charge is putting the Vols up front right now. So I would say they're playing from behind. And then last up is Jacob. Who are Tennessee's basketball targets in the portal? I know I heard a little about a North Texas guard. Okay, so the biggest targets in the portal right now, for Tennessee basketball, outside of the current players who are still deciding on their future, Santiago Vescovi being the big one. Chris Ledlum, Harvard, is a forward. He was on campus for an official visit. Dalton Connect, I believe is how you say his name. He is a wing. He is from Northern Colorado. He was on campus for an official visit. And Jordan Gainey, ironically, is the son of assistant coach Justin Gainey. He is a sophomore at USC Upstate. He is in the transfer portal, and he averaged over 15 points last year and shot 39.3% from the field, 34% from the three-point line. Those would be the biggest three names in the portal right now that Tennessee has some serious interest in. All right, that's all the time I have. Appreciate it, guys. What a fun show. Really, really appreciate it. I had a whole lot of fun talking Tennessee Vols, answering your mailbag questions. Vols in the transfer portal potentially. Vols heading to the NFL Draft, all that and more. Thank you so much for making Locked On Vols your first listen each and every day. We'll do it again tomorrow. We'll have Josh Ward come on for the show and a whole lot more. Appreciate you, everydayers. If you're not an everydayer, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Vols on the YouTube channel. Find us wherever you get your podcast completely free, but subscribe and leave me 5 stars and a positive review. As always, guys, appreciate you. We'll do it again, same time, same place. Tomorrow, this is Locked On Vols.